Thank you for watching this quick video on Planning Analytics workflow. I'm going to talk through some of the key concepts when using workflow with Planning Analytics, and I also want to give a shout out to Ali Duran for a small clip on YouTube that he put together of what visually it would look like in Planning Analytics. So when it comes to Planning Analytics workflow, the three concepts I want to talk about are locks, chains, and formality. So I'll start with locks. So when it comes to planning analytics, we want to think, what is the group of work to be submitted from one person to another for approval? As an example, maybe we'll think about this as a department. So there's one, say we have a department dimension, and we're going to submit all the work for our one department as part of our annual plan or annual budget process. Along with that, what is the thing to be locked after the first person makes a submission? So this is usually a combination of this thing with something else. So if we go with the example of, we're going to submit the information for our one department, we're likely going to lock that department for budget for this fiscal year and maybe other things as well. Maybe there's a particular measure in our measures dimension, but there's something that we want to lock. So the group of work that's being submitted is really the information for our one department, but we're locking not just that one department, we're locking that department in combination with scenario, year, possibly measure, maybe other things. Now that submission leads into the idea of an approval chain. So an approval chain really talks about the who. Okay? So who enters the first information, who gives the first approval, who gives the nth approval. There could be many approvals between the first and the last, and then who gives a final approval. And all of these need to be users in the system. Someone that's not using Planning Analytics can't approve something. So all of the people that are going to participate in approval chain need to be users in the system and need to be comfortable knowing that, for them to submit or approve something, they need to know where to do that. They need to have licenses or be users in the system. That also leads into the question of formality. So most organizations already have informal approvals. Is there a benefit of making informal approvals formal? That's a question to consider for any organization looking to implement this kind of formal workflow. Formal approvals require the approver to log in and approve each batch of work submitted for approval. So using our example here, if we had a particular department that we're submitting, if we have one person who's responsible for 100 departments, then we'll either need to add some kind of logic in our process to say, hey, when so-and-so logs in, do all the approve all the departments below it, or they need to go through one by one and say, yep, for this department approve it, for this department reject it. It could end up being a cumbersome process that doesn't really add value. So now I'm going to show a little clip from Ali Duran's video on using workflow within Workspace. So to give it some context, this is on the top left, we're looking at our budget plan. This is information. Imagine we've got our departments of A through E on our rows, and then we've got maybe different regions, J through K. J through K we're not necessarily using in this case, but then in the bottom left, the workflow section, just giving us transparency into the state of the submissions for each of our A through E departments.
So Bob comes in, and the first thing he needs to you can see is a gray screen here for his budget plan, and then there's a not started for the nodes that he has access to as far as the status goes. So Bob needs to take ownership of his nodes in order for him to be able to work inside a node. So as soon as he takes the ownership, he needs to refresh his screen, and he has access to the node now with a white cell indicating that he has access to it. Now, there's another indicator here at the bottom of our screen. As you know, with our Turbo Integrator processes that we triggered using these action buttons on Planning Apps Workspace, we have this information written to the intersection of C and status. And the node C says current owner is Bob since March 19, 2019 as of this time. So Bob can now go in, do his budget and plan, and then he spreads $500 between the column H and K. And then he also says, okay, I need to also work on the node E. He's going to do that. He now takes ownership. He's going to go ahead and refresh the screen. So yes, you can see that it's white again. So he's going to enter another 3,500 here, and maybe 500 in there as well. Alright, so Bob is done. You can see the workflow status at the bottom of the page as the current owner. And if he needs to do more, he can continue to do more. But what he's going to do is he's going to submit the node that he's done with. So he's going to submit node E, and then he's going to also submit node C that he has worked on. Okay. So if Bob goes ahead and refreshes the screen, now the screen now turns into gray for him for the input plan. And on the bottom of the screen, you can see that the workflow section is already changed to orange color, and it says submitted by Bob on this time of the day. Okay. So we go to the next person now. Now that Bob is done, he's waiting for PM, the other user that is his supervisor, let's assume. He's going to be managing him. So PM comes into work, and then he refreshes his screen, and then as soon as he refreshes the screen, you can see that, okay, so there's some information in here that Bob must have posted, right? So and then he looks at the bottom of the screen, and you can see the workflow status, and he looks at the values, says, okay, these are good 500, but that one doesn't seem right. So he looks at the node E. So he takes ownership of node E, says, okay, this is mine now, I'm going to start working on it, and then refreshes his screen. Now he's the current owner of this node. He's going to also put a comment in here, and then send it back to Bob, and we'll say, Bob, this is not what we agreed on. Please adjust to 22. And he posted as a comment for Bob. Okay. Closes this. He says, okay, so I can't approve this, but this one looks okay. I'm going to go ahead and approve the C unit. And then he's going to say, okay, I don't want to approve the E one, so I'm going to just go ahead and send it back to Bob. Rejected it. And as soon as he refreshes the screen again, now he's got to approve and
So just look, that was a great example of kind of visually how to walk through a workflow chain. And using the example there, what's being locked. In this case, we've got our letters through A through E are the things that are being locked for the different regions. So maybe our departments in this example are the letters A through E, but in combination, it's rather than scenario and year, it's all those other letters G through K in the columns. That's also what we're going to be locking once a submission is made. And the who. So who enters the first information? So it's usually whoever owns the that particular element. And then in this case, it's just we're going through one approval chain is just one person submitting and one person approving or rejecting. They're all users in the system. Both in this case, the two people that are participating in the chain, they're both users in the system, so they can come in individually, review things, and approve or reject or submit. And then, formality. So this is a formal workflow process here. They can't change anything until they first take ownership of it, and there's a clear lineage of whether it's owned by someone right now or approved or rejected. So given all that, from a design perspective, there's some questions to think about for each organization. What is the thing to be locked? What are the approval chains for each thing? Should all chains be formalized? Maybe there's a case, to elaborate, maybe there's a case where some approval chains need to be formalized while others do not. What happens if someone doesn't approve something? Does it hold up the whole process? So if this is a highly regulated business, maybe you need to know exactly who approved each part of a plan before the whole thing can get approved. Or maybe it's the case that even if something is not fully approved, maybe someone from finance or an admin group, they can do that, and that's okay. But that's a little less formal than a fully formalized process. If you have any questions, let me know or comment below. Thanks for watching.